Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and this lovely podcast. Hello to the Pewter people. Happy Tuesday. Hope everybody is doing well, as we have a great episode in store for you as we break down and give our analysis to the Bucs' third OTA practice of this season, now in the month of June. We saw a fresh new face. We saw a lot of other familiar faces, and we got to speak to some Bucs players as well. Baker Mayfield, which we will talk about on tomorrow's podcast, but also a lot of great stuff from defensive tackle Kalijah Cancey and new cornerback Bryce Hall as well. So couple of highlights from practice, a couple of things from the press conferences with Todd Bowles too, and a lot to discuss. So I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague from PewterReport.com that was out with me at practice today, Adam Slavon. Adam, how's it hanging?
Matt, doing great. Another OTA practice, and we're just on the cusp of minicamp coming up next week. Really exciting day of press conferences. I felt like some key takeaways from the OTAs. Be sure to check out our insider that's now up on PewterReport.com. But happy to be discussing this with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get right into the swing of things. Happy to be here. One person that was here today was Mike Evans, who we did not see for a little bit. You know, the Bucs put out a social media clip of him at practice, so he's been in Tampa at least since the end of last week, but was not at OTAs, at least the part that's available to the media. So Mike Evans was there. Some of the players that were not, Vita Vea, once again, not at OTAs. Randy Gregory, that one I'm a little surprised by. I get it. It's optional. You don't have to be there. But I think there's also something to be said about, hey, you're on a new team. You're kind of on your last leg. Yeah, open competition. Like, maybe it's not necessarily hurting him, but it's not helping, his situation by any means. No Levante David, but that's to be expected. Antoine Winfield Jr. was not there either. And if you watched his Instagram story the other day, it looked like he was out on vacation somewhere. So, once again, OTAs, not extremely mandatory. Two people that were out as well. Ko Kieft, he was at practice but was not participating. Doesn't sound like he's going to be ready for minicamp either. And Jamel Dean did not participate either. He was kind of just chilling on the sidelines, had his jersey, but did not participate. So, that's kind of your update. But it was good to see Mike Evans available today.
Yeah, and back to his typical self. He was really just kind of setting the tone for the young wide receiver room, like being the first one doing the drills, and then the rookies kind of following in line. But for Mike Evans, great to see him out there, and he looks just as good as ever.
Yeah, he does. And you see a leadership role very early on with Mike. Not that we expect anything different. I mean, it's Mike Evans, but I saw Mike talking to Jalen McMillan. I remember specifically as well, he was talking with Trey Palmer, and obviously, I'm not a lip reader, and they're 65 yards away from us. I couldn't exactly tell what he was saying, but it looked like he was showing Trey Palmer a specific move or a certain way to get away from the defenders, and it was fun seeing that. Mike obviously cares so much about this team, this organization, and he always speaks so highly of the younger wide receivers. And, there's been different groups of receivers that have come in, but he's been super complimentary of a lot of the younger wide receivers. And it was cool to see it on display with Trey Palmer and McMillan specifically, because one of those guys is really going to end up benefiting from playing alongside Mike and Chris.
Yeah, for sure. One of them will be the wide receiver 3, and those two and Rakim Jarrett, now with Devin Tompkins gone, they are being entrusted even more and getting more of a target share and being involved in the return game. You're going to hear those names often this coming season. So for Mike, kind of being out there first day, like instilling some wisdom on them. And then on the flip side, the backs, hope they brought their notes with them, because he's going through some lesson plans and demonstrating what they're going to see on Sundays.
You say that last part again? You kind of cut out momentarily.
Yeah, just the defensive backs on the flip side, they better have brought their notes with them, because Mike Evans, he's going to be teaching them.
Mike does tend to humble the younger corners. I remember Keenan Isaac kind of had that, initiation, if you will, last season when he was an undrafted free agent. He ended up on, for lack of a better term, the tail end of a gigantic, monstrous touchdown for Mike Evans in training camp. And we'll see who kind of is the victim of Mike Evans this time around. But it's all part of the learning curve. I mean, Zion McCollum, who we had on yesterday's show, and highly recommend to everybody, if you have not watched that episode yet, I'm definitely checking out. Zion was on with us for literally the entire hour, from as soon as the little musical intro starts to right before we did the out. Zion McCollum was on the whole time. So an hour-long podcast with Zion was so awesome. But yeah, I mean, Zion was one of those guys early on that had to go up against Mike Evans, and we'll see some of the other corners that have to face him this year. So fun to see Mike out there. I thought it was interesting with Todd Bowles too, because he kind of got asked about, waiving Devin Tompkins, which we found out was a hamstring injury, and why that move was made, because it was a little surprising, I would say. I mean, he was the starting kick and punt returner, but I do wonder, Adam, if this is going to be a situation where he's waived right now, and then, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later, he's back on the team when he's healthy.
Yeah, he spoke about it for 10 seconds, but in those 10 seconds, he mentioned the door is open, kind of alluding to the possibility of it. While it is a tough business, he could be back in the fold. I mean, Devin Tompkins still had value as a return guy. He was on the 53-man roster the whole season last year for a reason. And just his ability to be involved on end arounds and gadget plays, knowing the offense. I don't know if it's the last time that we've seen Devin Tompkins in Tampa Bay.
I don't think it will be, and I don't necessarily think that means he's going to make the team. I mean, they just waived him, but I think he'll be back and he'll have an opportunity to fight for his position, whether it's, fit wide receiver or kick and punt returner again. I don't think it's the last that we've seen of Devin Tompkins, unless another team picks him up. I mean, obviously Carolina is always an option now since Dave Canales is over there. It will be something to pay a little bit of attention to. And it sounds like Todd Bowles is very high on the wide receivers this year, because last week he was talking about McMillan, how he can't wait to see the pads get on him when they go full contact and everything like that. He kind of reiterated that today when talking about the confidence in the rest of the room, which allowed the Bucs to decide we're going to part ways with Devin Tompkins instead of just letting him heal up like some of the other guys. And, he said they have a great room. There's going to be great competition, obviously outside of Mike and Chris. So I think there's a lot to expect from the wide receiver room this year, because it's not, obviously everyone has to learn a new offense with Liam Cohen and everything like that, but it's not all a ton of new guys outside of Jalen McMillan. Rakim Jarrett and Trey Palmer have a year under their belt. We don't need to say anything about Mike and Chris. They've obviously done it before. They've elected really not to go that veteran wide receiver route and bring in a guy kind of like what they did with David Moore to just bring experience. So it's guys that have either been here or at least have been around for a season. And McMillan's the highest drafted wide receiver they've had since they took Chris Godwin in the third round, when the year they drafted Chris Godwin. So I think there's a little bit more of a higher expectation for the wide receivers than maybe in years past. And when I say the wide receivers, let's just establish the precedent. There's Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then there's the Bucs wide receivers. So when I say the Bucs wide receivers, I mean Rakim Jarrett and Trey Palmer and Jalen McMillan. I don't mean Mike Evans and Chris Godwin because they're obviously
their own separate tier.
Yes, they are. They're very much held in a different and higher regard. The last thing I want to say about Tompkins and kind of that whole situation is Bowles mentioned with the kickoff, which, as we know, it's going to be quite different this year. He mentioned that it's going to be a lot of experimentation when it comes to experiments when it comes to who's going to be the returner, how they go about the return game. So I'm hoping, and obviously the preseason, we're still 2 months away from it, but I'm hoping at like every single turn, there's just a different returner. Like game one, first kickoff, let's just say Trey Palmer. I'm not saying that's going to be the lineup. And then first punt return, Bucky Irving. And then all of a sudden, the first kickoff of the second half is Jalen McMillan or whatever it is. So I hope we just see a Royal Rumble of kick and punt return candidates. Like, who knows? Maybe Sean Tucker gets in the mix or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought it's interesting the way he said they're going to experiment with it.
And I think, I know recently your guy, Robert Saleh, kind of talked about in press conference that the return game, there's probably going to be like 100 kickoff plays this year. So being able to experiment with various returners and just kind of exploring the elements of the new return game. Do you put a guy back there like Bucky Irving, who's elusive, Trey Palmer, who has straight line speed, Rakim Jarrett, who has more of a physical build to him? I think it's worth trying out each archetype and seeing the best results that you get from the return game.
Yeah, it's going to be a work in progress. This might be something, honestly, Adam, that changes throughout the regular season.
Yeah.
You know, it's just until you find the right fit. And this goes throughout the league, too. I'm not even really saying specifically for the Bucs. I mean, there's not many teams that have a Devin Hester type of, returner. Like Cordell Patterson was great for a while. I believe he's with the Steelers now, which is interesting.
Arthur Smith.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think across the league, it'll be a good storyline for the preseason, how it works out, who's able to succeed from it. And, it puts a lot more effort and onus on special teams coaches, maybe than it has been in the past couple of years. So definitely something we'll pay a little bit more attention to. Of course, we got to pay attention to this. Thank you to Black Gold 1999 for the $49.99 super chat. We appreciate you so much, Black Gold 1999. You're our official commenter of the day with this super chat. Unless anyone wants to top that. But as you know, if you super chat us, especially a $49.99 super chat, we get to yours ASAP. So without further ado, Black Gold 1999 says, "Hey guys, it's been a minute since I caught the live show. Love this show and just showing some Bucs love." Well, we love you, Black Gold 1999. Thank you so much for this super chat. That just made my day, and we would not be able to do this show without all of you, especially you, Black Gold 1999. So thank you very much. And if you have a further comment or anything like that, we will, of course, get to it immediately. Also want to show some love to John Minky. At the beginning of the show said, "Enjoying my Tropical 5, waiting for the show to start. Celsius truly," probably meant Tropical Vibe. "Celsius truly has become my go-to energy drink. Love Pewter Report." Thank you, John. That's very nice of you. And we hope you love Celsius as well. We'll talk about Celsius in a couple of minutes. But Adam, what else stood out to you from a playing field / practice standpoint of what went on?
Yeah, so on the playing field, I think the other thing that stood out to me was the undrafted free agents and really just the rookies in general. Today you saw Florida State linebacker Kalen DeLoach had a really nice play where he came off the edge. It was against the backups, but with his 4.47 speed, he's able to get to after the quarterback. He was in the backfield in a hurry, and if they had the pads on, quarterback would have went down pretty easily. So that was a really standout play. Another one was Toledo cornerback Chris McDonald Jr. had an interception, I believe against John Wolford, where he really just cut a route, middle of the field, took the interception, and went to the end zone. So seeing those two guys like really make the most of their opportunities, that's what this point of the offseason is all about. Not just the guys that are taken in the draft, the guys that are really just fighting to stay in the NFL. They need to make the most of every single practice. So I thought from an undrafted rookie standpoint, those two stood out. And then Graham Barton, the first round pick, really got some quality center reps with Baker Mayfield. And there's on Pewter Report social, there was a picture of Baker Mayfield kind of having his arm around Graham Barton, just kind of like coaching him up in between. I thought that was really cool that they're building that chemistry already. And just seeing Graham Barton being out there as a center, like getting used to it. I think it's been a slow acclimation process for him from going from the second team to the first team, just kind of getting the hang of things. And with mandatory minicamp coming up next week, getting into the swing of things even more and perhaps just taking over the first team reps.
Yeah, I'll start with the undrafted free agents because this is a really important time. I mean, obviously all of it is, but when you're an undrafted free agent, you have to make an impact really as much as possible, but as quickly as possible too, because you already want to start doing things that in the back of the coaches' heads, they think, oh, well, what about this player when he did something? Or what about that player when they did something? And I think a guy like Kalen DeLoach, who you just talked about, the linebacker who formerly played at Florida State, I actually oddly think it kind of helps that he played at FSU, not just because like, oh, he's in the state of Florida and he's practicing in the Florida heat at this time. But there's something about with Bucs players, and I'm sure it's the same with like Jacksonville, maybe not Miami to a degree, but probably more with like Jacksonville and Tampa than Miami. Anytime there's a Florida Gator player or Florida State Seminole or occasionally a UCF or USF guy, it seems to generate more buzz. And Kalen DeLoach is, ended up on lists as like one of the most likely undrafted free agents to make a team every year, or every like Hall of Fame class. There's occasionally a guy that was an undrafted free agent, starting out, and it happens from time to time. And DeLoach, he didn't just make plays today. He had a pass breakup last week when we were there. He looked pretty good in rookie mini camp too. And I wonder, because I haven't gotten to speak to DeLoach just yet, but I wonder how much looking at the Bucs linebacker room was it, hey, this is a great opportunity for me. He's not going to start over Levante David, but you got Savasier Dennis, who's in year 2. We like Savasier. Obviously, he's a friend of the program, has been on the podcast recently. But like a year 2 guy that was injured for a little bit of his first season, like, I don't know. If you're an undrafted free agent, I think the Bucs at inside linebacker is not a bad spot to be if you want to fight to make this team where really you're kind of competing with J.J. Russell for maybe that last spot. And then corner with McDonald. Again, yes, you would love to go to a situation where there's just not as many bodies or not as much talent at that position. But also, you get to go and learn from Todd Bowles, who we've talked about is a defensive
guru,
wizard, whatever you want to call it. He played defensive back in this league. There's really not many better coaches to work with if you're an undrafted free agent than Todd Bowles, especially when you add on top of it having to deal with a lot of rookies going back to, Winfield was a rookie that helped win a Super Bowl, and coach Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis and help them get, the big second time contract. And then even Christian Izien got to start in the secondary. So the Bucs have a history of just getting undrafted free agents to work. And I think it's a lucrative opportunity for a lot of these undrafted free agents. And that kind of helps with our next super chat from MMDVG. Thank you so much for this $5 super chat, who says, honestly, I'm excited to see if the undrafted free agent talent of Ramon Jefferson shines through. Seems like a good diamond in the rough pickup. So Ramon Jefferson, as you mentioned, undrafted free agent, played at Kentucky. Adam, of course, he's.
I wonder what the connection is there.
What is the connection there? And it's so funny because during draft season, all of the talk and discussion was Ray Davis. Ray Davis to the Buccaneers. Offensive coordinator Liam Cohen was the one coaching him, but it ends up being Ramon Jefferson. I don't know if I'm saying his first name right. I'm going to say probably Ramon, maybe Raymond without the D, but Jefferson is the one that ends up in Tampa Bay. The running back room is quite interesting. I'm not going to lie to you, MMDVG. I haven't seen a lot from Jefferson specifically, other than that I actually noticed it today too. Like he's rocking 45, so it's like, oh,
it's
like,
weird seeing 45 on a running back.
Yeah, that honestly, that was a problem for me with the first year that that Ali Marpet retired, and I saw someone else wearing 74, and I was like,
it's not right.
This isn't right. This isn't right at all. Yeah, so it was a bit odd seeing that, but now with some of the other guys, now that I've been immersed to it, it's not as bad. But I will say, Adam, I mean, the Bucs running back room. Obviously, you got your two guys with Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. Chase Edmonds, veteran dude, quite helpful. Does have an injury history. Keyshawn Vaughn on the scene, but do the coaches do they love him right now? I don't necessarily know. And they let go of Patrick Laird. There's a good opportunity for Jefferson to kind of make this practice squad. I mean, he's kind of competing right now with Sean Tucker, and obviously wants to get that invite to training camp and everything like that. But again, if you want to hedge your bets, play with the coach that coached you in college. I think that's a pretty good idea.
And I think that's probably why he's in Tampa Bay, is Liam Cohen bringing him down. But when you look at the running back picture with Laird being cut, it kind of seems like Jefferson has the inside track to at least making the practice squad and kind of competing with Sean Tucker in the process of maybe being that. I want to say Jefferson's more of a power back build, so competing with Tucker in that role. And then when you look at Chase Edmonds, let's say he, God forbid, gets an injury and misses 4 weeks like he did last year, then you're kind of looking at he could be elevated up to the active roster as a number 3 back, get some goal line opportunities, and then kind of carve out a role that way. So with Ramon Jefferson, it's interesting when we were talking about Deloach and McDonald, the Bucs had 3 undrafted free agents on the roster last season and kind of making an impact with Izzian, Watts, and Tucker. And this year, it could, again, be a mix of each of those guys.
Yeah, and then also sticking on the topic of undrafted free agents, there was another one, outside linebacker Sean Peterson Jr. He did play at UCF. He made a nice play today where, like, if you were allowed to hit the quarterback, it probably would have been a sack. And just wanted to give him a quick shout out because he got around the offensive tackle with a solid move. Again, they're not wearing pants and everything, but I noticed that he got around, got to the quarterback, forced an earlier throw. It's tough because outside linebacker is one of like the deepest positions that the Bucs have on the roster. But hey, a good play is a good play, and you got to start somewhere. But yeah, Jefferson, you're right about his build. Like even seeing him from far, he's got that stocky, physical bruiser build, which honestly, the Bucs don't really have. Like they have physical guys. Don't get me wrong. Rachaad White can be physical, but like stature-wise, he's not a wrecking ball by any means. So Jefferson, again, if injuries happen, you don't want it to, but short yardage guy, and who knows? So there's something to think about for sure. And thanks to KGH for Life for this $5 super chat. We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody with these great super chats for the show. I mean, we have one topic, but if you super chat us, we'll steer the direction whichever way you want. But anyway, KGH for Life says, what's up, guys? What's up, KGH for Life? It seems there's less media availability for the OTAs this year. Is that the case? No, I don't think so. It's been the same. So there's a lot more OTA practices, but they only allow the media availability to 1 per week. That's been the case really since I've been on the beat. And then next week is even more fun because it's mandatory minicamp, and we're there for all 3 practices. So it's been relatively similar. I kind of like that they do it during the week as opposed to like on the weekend, which is kind of better in my opinion. But yeah, it's been relatively the same. So, But yeah, I'm curious why you think it's different. Is just something point out to you? Is there anything specifically that makes you think that way? I'm just curious, but we try to cover it from all angles.
Yeah.
Brian Levin says 28 minutes late. That's all right. You can catch this on YouTube. I think you might be able to right now just rewind it and start from the beginning.
Yeah.
But you can also watch it right after. It says, much respect to you guys and Pewter Report. Thank you so much for those kind words, Brian. We really appreciate that. I think we should pay it forward and give some respect to our good friends over at Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. We keep the vibes high on this show, very high, in fact, and a lot of it is because of you, the Pewter people, put us in a great mood, and so does Celsius. And they have great vibe flavors to the Galaxy, Astro, and Cosmic there. Tropical vibe was being talked about before. The Arctic vibe is my personal favorite. I'm a huge fan of the Arctic vibe. There's no sugar. It's a great way to start your day. If you want to substitute coffee for Celsius, I think that's a great recommendation, a great idea. You need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink. Go on over to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address and tell you the closest location where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, health and fitness store, 7-Eleven, or it might just be your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega, you know you love Celsius and you want more. You can buy more. You can buy it in bulk. I'd recommend purchasing that variety pack because variety is the spice of life. And you go over to Amazon, order that variety pack, and have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Let's talk a little bit about that center position, Adam, as you brought up a little bit ago with the undrafted free agents as well. There's been a lot of positivity about Graham Barton.
Yes.
We heard Baker talk about him today, which, again, we're going to break down everything that Baker Mayfield had to say on tomorrow's Pewter Report podcast. So we didn't forget about Baker. He obviously spoke about Tristan Wirfs and some other things about the offense. We'll get to Baker and Tristan Wirfs as well. But for the time being, Baker's been working with a little bit of Graham Barton, a little bit of Robert Hainsey. Nothing but great things have been said about Graham Barton.
Yep.
I think it's nice, but I'm really not putting any stock into it. I mean, he's not blocking against people. There's no physicality. The snaps look good. I think that's a nice start. And then also, he does move very quickly. And you can kind of see that right off the bat. And I think that will transition to when the pants come on, too. So positivity with Graham Barton, but I'm not ready to say he's, the next Jason Kelce.
Right. And Todd Bowles kind of said that today when he was talking about Bucky Irving. Like, he's looked good. This guy's looked good. Yeah. I mean, everybody looks like an All-American when they're not in pads. So that'll be interesting to see when the pads come on, what Graham Barton will look like. But Baker Mayfield, he said it today and mentioning that Graham Barton has all the physical tools. I mean, that guy, he's stocky. He's built for the center position. And then he also keeps his feet under him really well. And he's really athletic. And he pairs that with having enough power to really gain leverage on his block. So I think when you look at it and plugging him in at the center spot, I think he does offer a lot of upside there, more so than Hainsey. And it'll be interesting to see when that full transition takes place in which Barton really takes over that starting center spot.
Yeah, that's where we miss Tristan Wirfs a little bit because I would like to get a good look at the starting offensive line. Wirfs on the left side, whoever wins guard, or whoever they decide, hey, we're going to put this guy as the starting offensive guard on paper on the left side. And then obviously Barton at center, but is it Barton at center? Do they end up moving Barton to guard and keeping Hainsey at center? I'd be very curious about that. And then, of course, Cody Mauch on the right side and Luke Gedeke at right tackle. That's where you missed that a little bit. I will say, going back to last week a little bit when we spoke to Cody Mauch, Mauch was super complimentary about how Graham Barton has taken on a leadership role already, and he has the qualities, the makings of a leader. And I think that's important because I don't think Graham Barton's the first round. It's different if you're, and Caleb Williams probably isn't the right example, but if you're like a top pick at quarterback and you go to a bad team and there's like no one else around you that is kind of established, you have to step up and be the leader. Graham Barton coming to a Bucs team that has won the division 3 years in a row, that has made the playoffs 4 years in a row. You have an all-pro in Tristan Wirfs and other guys that were starters at least 4 seasons in Cody Mauch's case. You can't really come in and be like, all right, like,
this is my show now.
Everything, yeah, this is my show. Everything's on me, and I'm going to make sure we get it done. That just doesn't necessarily work. But eventually, Graham Barton is going to be that guy that's going to be a leader because I think he can lead in separate ways of Tristan Wirfs. So when Cody Mauch said that last week, I thought that was interesting. And then you kind of pair it with what Baker said today, which, again, we'll talk about tomorrow. But I think Graham Barton's personality early on has been a big, big plus for this group.
Yeah, definitely. Very mature. I remember we had our chill session with Graham Barton back in like a couple weeks ago. And just hearing him talk like for, 20 minutes, like you could really tell that is a mature like leader. And that's what you want from the center position, is a guy that can not only communicate, but really get the message across and do so in a way that other players, they want to play for you. They want to play harder. Kind of like Baker Mayfield, having that same mentality. When you walk in a room, like guys just gravitate towards you. And it really feels like they do that with Graham Barton because he does seem like maybe he's quieter, but when he talks, people get the message. So
yeah, for sure. A couple other news and notes that we saw from practice today. Jalen McMillan just seems to be everywhere. And I don't mean like he's the fastest guy or he's the most athletic guy, which he is quite athletic. So I'm not dismaying what he can do in those areas. But I feel like every time I look up, it's Baker throwing it to Jalen McMillan. Now, part of that is, Mike Evans isn't playing every single snap and Chris Godwin is getting moved around and things like that. But early on, I think Jalen McMillan has been a big-time winner when it comes to Bucs OTAs. He just seems to have a knack for getting the football. And again, we can't get too ahead of ourselves. There's no physicality, no pass on yet. But McMillan is doing better than a lot of these other rookie wide receivers that have been here the past couple of years. And maybe that's to be expected because we're talking about either late round picks or, undrafted free agents. But, it wasn't like last year where Trey Palmer, who can do more than just get the deep ball. But, Palmer, you hit him with a couple of deep shots. It's kind of be expected against other rookies and undrafted guys. But McMillan is catching the ball, long against Bryce Hall a couple weeks ago. This week, it was a lot of like short underneath stuff. I know Chris Godwin's the one going into the slot, but McMillan, I think, is going to be arguably the most creative in terms of usage of him, where you're like, he'll line up outside, but, he'll hit you with a slant. He'll hit you with a dig. He'll just do a go route. He'll run 5 yards and catch the ball and be out of bounds. Like, I don't know. I just think there's a lot more like shiftiness and creativity to Jalen McMillan.
Yeah.
Now working with, obviously Michael Penix, hopefully he'll have a good career. Bucs won't hope that he has a good career, but he was a top pick for a reason. But now that he's working with like NFL pro talent, it's just kind of like made him even better already.
Yeah, I think you make some great points there. And when you look at McMillan, like he just looks smooth. I remember we were looking down for a second, like making notes. Look up, you see McMillan right across the middle, like catching a pass. Like it seems like whenever you look up, he's making a play. And while it's still too early to really fully assume that he's going to be this great player, there is a reason that he is the highest drafted wide receiver since Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
I mean, the talent is there. In a deep wide receiver class, he was the guy that the Bucs had on their radar. And he would have been drafted higher if he didn't get injured while playing at Washington. So I think when you look at McMillan, a lot of his skill set just translates. I remember today they were doing this drill where they were kind of hopping back and forth on one leg and then just going and taking doing an out route. And compared to the other rookie wide receivers and like the young guys, he really stood out, and haven't really seen him drop any passes yet. So, I mean, just a good hands with a nice route running. It does seem like he's going to have a big role this season.
It does. And another player that is looking to kind of keep his same role that he had a year ago is Christian Izien, who obviously was the starter in the slot last year at nickel for the Buccaneers. However, this year the competition is much, much stiffer. They drafted Tyke Smith, who can play safety, but obviously can thrive in the slot as well. And Tavier Thomas, coming over from the Texans, is a player that has lined up in the slot too. So way more competition for Christian Izien this year. He had a nice pass breakup today over the middle, dove in, knocked it out, put his hands up, and did some type of celebration or something. It was tough to see because, like, where we were watching the Bucs players that weren't playing, like, they just set up essentially
a line.
Yeah, a line, and then you have to. For us, media, and I'm not complaining. Like, I'm just happy they let us in the building. You gotta like position yourself in certain ways to see all the plays. But Izzy did a nice job there on that play. His role is quite intriguing to me because unfortunately, I don't think he's going to end up being the starter at nickel. But he's gonna pop up somewhere, one way or another. Hopefully, it's not just because of injury. But I feel like Christian Izien can be used in a couple of different ways. He's got great hustle. And we'll see how much he's improved too. Like he has a year under his belt. He doesn't have to deal with the draft process and all of that stuff. I'm curious like how much he has grown as a player and will grow. I know he had a child this offseason as well. So maybe a little bit, not that he was immature by any means, but just gaining a larger sense of responsibility now, obviously, with the new blessing and addition in his life. I think Christian Izien is a little pissed off, too, based on, some things that he's tweeted. And not like dissing Tyke Smith or Tavier Thomas, but just kind of frustrated that people are already counting him out and anointing some of these other guys as starters. But just watch out for Christian Izien, man, because I'm not saying he's going to win the job, but I'm saying he's not just going to roll over and let everybody else take it. I think he's going to make this way tougher on the whole competition and really the coaches to make a decision than I think many people expect.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Matt, I'm glad that you brought that up with talking about the nickel position, because I look at it as like the most underrated competition on the Bucs roster because it's such a vital role where Izien, he started every game last year in the nickel and got a lot of playing time. And the value of the nickel position in such a pass-heavy league, you need that guy that can play that position. So when you look at it with Izien, it was funny. I remember there's one social media post where they did like this early depth chart and they put Tyke Smith ahead of Izien, and Izien kind of quote tweeted and he was like, what's going on here? So I think that Izien has a lot of value. And for being an undrafted rookie playing in Todd Bowles' defense, I mean, Bowles trusts you. Like, he wouldn't put just anybody in there. And the picture on the screen is when he kind of wrestled the ball away from the Vikings wide receiver in the opener and got his first interception. So, I mean, he has the tools and the ability to really make plays. And I think Tyke Smith and Tavier Thomas are really going to bring the best out of him and really the position entirely, because all those guys, I think, could start at the position. But who's going to be on the field? I think that'll be really intriguing to see.
Yeah, just thinking about it too, that interception, if you remember, Adam, that came at a huge moment in the game because it was right before halftime and the Vikings
they were about to score.
chugging down the field. Yeah, they were in field goal range, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, Izzy made that huge play, and it helped a lot with the momentum. And then obviously made an interception, I believe, the following week or the week after, and got off to a great start. Then kind of cooled off, but the hustle was always there. The poise in the drive was always present as well. I'm starting to think, we obviously watch all the games. We give our analysis and breakdown. We watch film after two. But then time goes on. I'm curious, Pewter people, feel free to chime in. I kind of want to do like a Bucs rewatch of every single game and just kind of because, like, for example, that Christian Izzy interception, the momentum of it and how important it was at the time. To be honest, I haven't really thought about that in the last 2 months because, random thoughts pop into your head. But Bucs Vikings week 1 wasn't really one of them. But I don't know. I'm curious if fans would be interested in a like Bucs kind of 2023 rewatch, rewind. We could live stream it and kind of like give our thoughts and opinions. We obviously know what happens in the game. We wouldn't have to do every game too. Like we wouldn't do, Bucs Saints in Tampa where they lost and they didn't really score. Like just kind of
like the Texans game or something like that.
Yeah. Bat W says, haha, I've rewatched the season 3 times now.
Oh man.
That's great.
Just binge watch it.
Yeah. Lord Jimbo 2 says, if when Dean goes down, who is the other corner? Hayes, or do they put Smith at the boundary and Izzy in the slot? Yeah, that's a good question. Josh Hayes is another guy I'm kind of interested in. Like, is he just going to be resigned to playing in special teams and won't really factor in as a defensive back, or can he kind of make headway in another spot? If Jamel Dean goes down, obviously you'll have Zion in one spot. Bryce Hall, who we'll get to in a moment, Bryce Hall will definitely take up the other corner spot. So really, if Dean gets hurt, you're kind of just swapping in Hall for Dean. Or, I mean, I don't think we can rule out Bryce Hall winning a starting job, and Zion is the first one that comes off. But either way, it's kind of a 1-for-1. I think, unfortunately, the only major adjustment you would have to make is if something happens at safety.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do then? Do you take, let's just say Tyke Smith wins. Do you take Tyke Smith from the slot and put him at safety and then move Izzy into the slot or Thomas to the slot? Or do you keep Tyke Smith at nickel and move Izzy in to safety? Or, does Merriweather get an opportunity? There's a couple different ways to look at it. But as far as the question of just, Lord Jimbo said I forgot about Hall. But yeah, in terms of that situation, it'd really just be Hall going in for Dean. But hopefully we don't have to get to that situation. Now,
yeah, and it kind of speaks, I was just going to say, to like the versatility of the room. Like last season, you saw a guy like Zion McCollum move to nickel, move to safety. Yes. Like the guys in the secondary now, they can move all over. And when you have 6 or 7 of them that can really fill like 4 or 5 spots, I mean, the defense is in a pretty good position there.
Oh, absolutely. So the next thing I was going to say is where, there's some uncertainty about really just backups and depth, even though you like the versatility overall, how they would go about it. There is 100% certainty and confidence that if you were going to go on the Buccaneers cruise coming up in March, that it's going to be a great time.
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey!
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr!
Join the fun with hundreds of Bucs fans on the 3rd annual Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise, which sets sail March 7th through the 10th in 2025 on the beautiful Celebrity Silhouette ship. The 3-night cruise begins in Fort Lauderdale and visits Key West and the Bimini in the Bahamas. Last year's cruise had Yaya Diaby, Greg Gaines, Rashad White, Luke Gedeke, Cade Otton, Jamel Dean, a couple others as well. And then, of course, Super Bowl 37 MVP Dexter Jackson, Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, Gene Deckerhoff, and many, many more. Even more players are expected next year. Tristan Wirfs, I believe, was on the first one, was a little busy this offseason. More guests are expected this year, and there's going to be a guest appearance by Derek Brooks. There will be photo and autograph opportunities with players, a Raise the Flag sail-away party, VIP parties with the players, special player interviews, a water volleyball challenge, Bucs trivia contests, and fun games and more. Reserve your cabin now on the 2025 Tampa Bay Bucs Cruise, where drinks, including alcohol, Wi-Fi, and tips are all included with a $200 deposit per person, which is refundable until August 16th. So get those deposits in, folks. Visit TampaBayBucsCruise.com. That's TampaBayBucsCruise.com, or you can give them a call at 1-800-975-7112. One more time, that's 1-800-975-7112. So once practice was done, we got to speak to a couple Buccaneers. Like I said before, Baker Mayfield will be the topic about all of tomorrow's Pewter Report podcast. But we also had Calijah Cancey, which was great to see, and newcomer Bryce Hall, new to the Bucs. He's been in the league. Adam, let's start with Calijah Cancey. Was there anything that really stood out to you about his press conference today?
Yeah, a couple things stood out. I think the first one was a question that you asked him, and where he was kind of talking about, my bad habit. I just watch sack reels. I watch other guys just go get after the quarterback. I thought that was really interesting, and kind of how he's looking to use that to propel himself next season, where he's seeing other guys do it. And he's like, hey, I want to get double-digit sacks. His goals for this season, he wants to win a Super Bowl, get those sacks, and then also wreak havoc on defense. I thought that really stood out. But also the fact that he doesn't want to take anything for granted this year. Yeah. And in playing a full season, last year he missed some time with the calf injury, and he's like, man, like just sitting there, I kind of felt like regret and shame in being injured because I wasn't out there on the field making the most of doing what I love. And he said that. He's like, I grew up playing football for free, and now I get paid.
Yeah.
I loved it then. I should love it even more now. So I think just the maturity of Calijah Cancey, and even in his free time, he's looking for ways to get better and just picking up little pieces and really just trying to become the best version of himself this year.
Yeah, I felt it was really a wonderful perspective from him. And to a degree, it felt like that SpongeBob meme where it's like Squidward in his house looking through the window and SpongeBob and Patrick are like running around. And I'm sure Calijah Cancey kind of felt that a little bit with him being injured, and all he wants to do is play, and he just can't go out and play. The thing about the film was funny, kind of like what you were saying about, yes, it's good for a defensive tackle to want to get sacks and record a number of sacks, but defensive tackles are asked a lot more than just go after the quarterback. In fact, they're not really asked as much to go after the quarterback versus an outside linebacker would be asked. So he said pretty much like not only being fixated on getting sacks when you have a lot of other responsibilities. But here's Calijah Cancey talking about the film that he watches.
Calijah, when you're watching film, do you just watch yourself and the Bucs defense, or do you tap into the tape of other defensive tackles like past and present?
Honestly, I have a bad habit of watching just sack reels all day. I just like to watch sacks. So now I'm starting to tap into different defensive linemen in the league around my body type that play like me or who I play like, and mostly all my plays I made bad last year.
Who are some of the guys you like to watch?
The guys from the Ravens, 92, Quinn Williams, Grady Jarrett, of course Aaron Donald, a lot of guys. Ed Oliver, I watch a lot of guys.
What about some of the old school guys? You said you like to go back a little bit.
I don't go back that far, but I just watch like all of the recent like sack reels. Like that's all I watch, honestly.
I was trying to think who 92 was on the Ravens.
Because Mazabuke?
Yeah, maybe that was it. Because initially I was like, Haloti Ngata, but I was like, he's not in the league anymore. But yeah, I thought that was funny. This is him talking about not taking anything for granted.
My ability, being able to just train every play I'm out there, not to take any play for granted. I kind of felt a little bit of that guilt when I got hurt. I kind of wanted to be out there very bad, and now me being able to be fully recovered, now I know just not to go out there and take any play for granted. So if that requires extra abs or training, whether it's running or anything like that, working extra moves to have my pass rush arsenal 100%, then that's what it'll be.
Yeah, that's where you heard a lot of like the guilt and you know, kind of felt like he let the team down, the fans down, himself down.
Yeah.
But then he kind of was asked about moving on to this season, playing with Vita Vea, a slimmed down Vita Vea, and you think it's going to be a great year for everybody.
It's definitely going to prepare me for a great season. Being able to have something to feed off of, like last year coming in, I didn't have any film playing in the NFL. Now I have film playing in the NFL. I've seen the mistakes I've made, and now I can actually go and make those corrections.
Pleasure. We're told that Vita Vea has done a lot of work on his body. He looks great. We haven't seen him personally. What have you noticed about him, and how much did you gain from the chemistry of the time that you were with him last season?
I've definitely gained a lot of knowledge, being with Vita, being able for him to be able to call out the blocking schemes and what the offense is about to do in certain situations, whether it's in the red zone or if they're in the gray area or anything like that. But he's definitely in great shape. He looks nice, and we're gonna be great this year.
And we also got to speak to Bryce Hall today, the cornerback that came over from the New York Jets. Bryce will very much be in the running to start at corner and comes to a very different style of defense than what he played with and for in New York. But Adam, what are your thoughts about Bryce Hall after hearing from him today?
I thought the most interesting part was a story that he told about his relationship with Jordan Whitehead and how he has known him. They were teammates in New York. They're teammates now, but they knew each other going back to high school when Jordan played running back. I thought that was really interesting. And by the way, Jordan Whitehead, he does look like he could be a running back. Like,
he does.
Talk about a stocky guy with Ramon Jefferson. Whitehead looks pretty similar. But Bryce Hall, I thought it was a great interview. He gave really detailed answers. I was kind of talking to you about that. But with Bryce Hall, I think that he's taking some things that he's learned in New York and in the same way, just trying to get better down in Tampa. Like Jordan Whitehead talked about when he went from Tampa to New York the first time, he was kind of learning different things and playing in a different style of defense. And for Bryce Hall, he's coming down. They only played a few coverages in New York, but in Tampa Bay, he's going to be asked to fill in a lot of different roles. Todd Bowles, he expects a lot out of corners.
Yes.
And so he's going to have to embrace being in different coverage packages, maybe coming off the edge as a blitzer and just kind of filling in wherever needed. And when you look at the secondary this year, if it is Dean and McCollum, Hall is another guy that he could fill in at nickel. He could fill in at corner should anybody go down. He's versatile, and I think he's a good fit in the defense.
Let's get to the video of Bryce Hall talking about his friendship and relationship with Jordan Whitehead as they go from the Jets to the Buccaneers. Whitehead's obviously second run with the Bucs, and Hall will be a Buck for the first time in his career this season.
Oh yeah, that's my guy. Believe it or not, we actually we played together we played against each other in high school. So like that goes back a long way. He's from Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania. So it was like the game to go to state champ back when he played running back. So we have a great relationship. So I always lean on him. We were really good We were really close in New York, and we'd always like reminisce, talk about that. So whenever we got here, it was like, hey, welcome back.
So I wanted to get Hall's perspective on this. He was going from a great defense with the Jets to still a really good defense with the Buccaneers. But they're two very, very different styles of defenses. The Jets are all about the great pass rush that they had up front with Quinnen Williams on the interior, Jermaine Johnson. Bryce Huff was a big part of that. Now he's with the Eagles, but they still got a really, really good pass rush. So the Jets did not blitz much at all. And, they had great linebackers, and obviously Sauce Gardner in the secondary at corner, and DJ Reed, and Whitehead back there. So the Jets did not blitz much each game. There are some games they didn't blitz at all because they didn't need to. The Bucs, even if they had a great front four, would still blitz a ton. That's what made the Super Bowl performance so interesting, because they didn't blitz that much. But Todd Bowles, a lot of different schemes, a lot of different looks, asked the secondary to do different things than essentially what the Jets do. So I really wanted to get Hall's perspective, and I was quite intrigued by what he had to say about, and I agree with him that they're both so different defenses, but it doesn't necessarily mean that one is better than the other, because they've both been, so great for a number of years, with the Bucs winning a championship and the Jets defense. The reason why the Jets lose every year, at least the past couple of seasons, has not been because of the Jets defense by any means.
Cough, Zach Wilson.
Yeah, exactly. So it was cool to get his perspective in the two different style of defenses that he has played for, and this was his response.
How do you feel coming from a Jets defense that didn't really blitz too much? They kind of just relied on the guys up front, to this Bucs defense where not only do they blitz often, but Coach Bowles has crazy schemes and play designs.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's two different philosophies, and so it's interesting coming from the side what we did. Maybe played 4 or 5 coverages, and that was it. And this time, it's like, okay, we got a whole bunch of different things that we're doing. But I wouldn't say it's better or worse. I would say here it's cool because there's so many different opportunities to make plays, create confusion on the quarterback, and then, have an opportunity to get your hands on some ball. And then also you see, the coach this defense for years, and they won the Super Bowl with this defense. So, this defense is, has the ability to be very, very good. So it's just cool for me coming in and just getting a different, experiencing something a little bit different, and then I get to play and do different things. So I'm grateful to be a part of this defense. It's cool for me, and just different philosophies, different styles. It doesn't mean either one both can't be good. You see in New York they do really good stuff here. I mean, everybody, they've been on that caliber level for a long time. So it's just, for me, it's just fun. It's cool. I get to learn something different. Just keeps it fresh for me.
Well, Bryce Hall is living in a new area, so he's going to need to work with a great realtor. And I could not recommend anybody better than Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group. It takes a full team effort to win a football game, and it takes a full team effort to win in real estate. With a strong team of vendors and a network of over 85,000 agents, Eric and the Eric Gross Group will turn your dream of buying or selling a home into a reality. Their clients are not just transactions, they are lifelong friendships. So don't let the stress of buying or selling a home keep you out of the game. Let the Eric Gross Group take the pressure off. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group. Check out their website, housesinfla.com. Give them a call at 513-907-4271. No matter where you are on your home ownership journey, you'll feel welcome with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of PewterReport.com. All right, it's been a lot of fun reviewing and recapping everything from today's Bucs OTAs. We didn't get to Baker Mayfield, but that's because tomorrow our discussion is all about the press conference had by Baker Mayfield. We'll get his comments on the new Bucs offense, his comments on Tristan Wirfs, what he's working on specifically. So a lot of fun on tomorrow's episode. And then Thursday, as we've been promoting, special guest Bucs assistant general manager, the cap guru, the cap genius, Mike Greenberg, joins the show on Thursday with Scott and Josh Capo making a return to the podcast as well. Very excited for this episode. Mike Greenberg doesn't do a lot of, podcasts and things of that nature. So a lot of questions will be had for him on the finance side of things. So that's Thursday's show with Mike Greenberg. And tomorrow we're talking all about Baker Mayfield. So in the meantime, if you're not already doing so, please like and subscribe and follow us on our social media. We're at Pewter Report on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. We have various clips from the Zion McCollum interview yesterday, obviously having him on the show. We got the podcast. We have live streams, clips from practice. We did something from practice today. Obviously, things with press conferences. So a ton of great stuff all on our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment on this as well. That's going to do it for us on today's show. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.